Rain hammered the glass of the Hale penthouse like 1,000 drummers, the city below smeared in silver, sirens fading into the midnight hum as if the world were holding its breath. Inside, a girl lay very still beneath a sheet the color of winter, tubes like pale vines curling to machines that whispered, beep, pause, beep, pause. 2 weeks, the doctor had said, voice smooth, eyes hard. 2 weeks left, Mr. Hale, I'm sorry. Robert Hale nodded because billionaires know how to nod when life tries to break them, but his knuckles were white around a pen that could sign anything except a miracle. He turned away from the bed, from Emma, the daughter who once painted sunrises on his cufflinks, and stared into the storm so the storm wouldn't see him cry. Near the bedroom door, a new maid stood with her hands clasped tight, the uniform too big in the shoulders, the heart too big for the room. Her name was Sophia. She had been hired yesterday, handed a checklist, and told to be invisible. Invisible sees everything. She noticed the lilies wilting in a crystal vase, a sweet, heavy scent that made her throat scratch. She noticed the candle flickering near the oxygen port, blue flame licking at perfume-thick air. She noticed, too, the tea tray, bone china shining, a slim cobalt vial tucked behind the honey, its label rubbed smooth by careful thumbs. Sophia had grown up where the sea could take your father and the night your sleep, where you learned to read the world the way others read books. Something in this room didn't want Emma to breathe. Don't touch anything, said John, the chief of staff, a man built out of calendars and rules. Michael, head of security, watched from the threshold with eyes that weighed people, not just doors. Dr. Evelyn Rowe, perfectly pressed, stepped close to Emma, adjusted a monitor, and gave the room a smile that didn't reach her pupils. The best care in the world, Evelyn said. Let's keep it calm. Sophia nodded, and inside the nod she made a promise, to listen to the breaths between the beeps, to find the thread everyone else had missed, to use her small space in this enormous house to pull a very big truth into the light. That night, when the rain slowed to a hush and the clocks turned stubborn, Sophia saw Emma's eyes flutter open. The girl raised a trembling finger and pointed past Sophia, past her father, past the glass, to an invisible lighthouse only she could see. Harbor light. Emma whispered, or maybe it was the monitor, or maybe it was the room remembering. Sophia looked at the city sky and felt salt in a storm that should have been freshwater. She remembered the way wind sounds inside a lighthouse. Stairwell, a hollow song that says keep going, and she understood the shape of a promise. 2 weeks can be a countdown, or it can be a lighthouse. Sophia chose the light. What would you choose if it was your child, your job, your breath, your truth? Morning came bright and cruel, the penthouse glass polishing the sun until it hurt to look. Sophia moved through quiet hallways on soft soles, breathing shallow because the air tasted like flowers and bleach, marble floors, brass rails, polished stone that felt colder than money. She pressed a palm to a window and felt the city's pulse on the other side, distant, steady, alive. Inside, everything felt paused. Kitchen, linen, guest rooms, John said, marching her past art that could buy countries. Stay out of the medical suite unless requested. He paused, eyes skimming her name badge like it owed him rent. And do not speak to Mr. Hale unless spoken to. Of course, she said, filing away words like tools. Sophia noticed details the way a violin hears a whisper, the vase of lilies near Emma's bed refilled every day by an unseen florist, the cobalt vial on the tea tray, always tucked behind the honey, always half an inch to the left, as if it returned to a favorite shadow, a scented candle labeled Shore Night. Its wick burned down fast and blue, a silver hairbrush with a faint metallic tang, the kind you taste at the tip of your tongue when fear is close. She found Robert in the study, city maps like battle plans behind him. His suit fit him the way armor fits a general. Mr. Hale, she said softly, may I freshen the air in Emma's room, just for comfort? His eyes were flat stones skipping across a lake, not sinking, not landing. Do your job, Robert said. Don't make promises you can't keep. He looked past her, toward the stormless sky, as if begging weather to return. Sophia returned to Emma's room and stood beside the bed, hands still, mind loud. Emma's skin was a page with fading ink, breath thin as tissue. Sophia remembered her mother saying, when in doubt, start by removing, not adding. She cracked the window a finger's width, letting the city's cool drift in. She slipped the lilies out of the vase and carried them into the hallway, pulse quickening when Emma's breathing eased. Just a little coincidence, she thought, but the kind that turns into evidence if you're brave. Who told you to move those? Asked Michael, appearing like a door in a wall. No one, Sophia said. But the scent was heavy. He studied her, then looked at the vase, then at Emma's chest rising a touch deeper. He didn't nod, but something in his shoulders did. Evelyn entered with a clipboard and a calm that felt like ice. "Please keep the room as it is," the doctor said, eyes flicking at the open window, narrowing. "Emma's lungs are fragile." Sophia closed the window, but she held on to the sound of Emma's breath deepening in that brief sip of air. Sometimes truth is a sound you replay until it becomes a plan. In the hallway, the staff whispered. "New girl thinks she's special," someone murmured. "Her shoes have more cracks than my phone," said another, laughter low and mean. Rich versus poor is not just about money, Sophia thought, it's about who's allowed to guess and who's allowed to know. That night, she stood by the window again, listening to the city exhale. Emma slept, the monitors hum like a lullaby written by machines, the candle guttered blue, and Sophia leaned close and whispered to the darkness. "I see you." The flame danced, sly. Sophia blew it out, heart pounding. Behind her, Emma's hand twitched, pointing once more toward a lighthouse only the brave could find. In the morning, a pale ring would appear on Emma's teacup, and Sophia would taste metal on the air again. Only now she knew the shape of the hunt. The tea arrived at 9, always at 9, the tray carried by a quiet man in white gloves whose name no one bothered to learn. Sophia learned it anyway. "Morning, Louise," she said, and he startled, almost dropping the honey. "Morning, miss," he whispered, grateful stitched into his voice. She watched Louise set the tray on the side table, watched his eyes skip over the cobalt vial as if instructed not to see it. "What is that?" Sophia asked, casual as dust. "Herbal sleep drops," he muttered. "Dr. Evelyn's order." "May I check the label?" "No label," he said. "It rubs off, I was told," and his cheeks colored like someone else's shame had walked into his face. Sophia waited until Louise left, then lifted the vial to the light. It smelled faintly of sugar and storm, a sweetness that made her tongue feel tired. She dabbed a single drop on the back of her hand, a ghost taste of coin, the dull tingle of a battery when you press it to your lip as a child. Her mother's voice again, "Don't swallow what you haven't named." "Put that down," John snapped from the doorway, appearing with the suddenness of rules. "Are you a doctor now?" "I'm a person who cleans the air," Sophia said, placing the vial exactly where it had been. "And I listen." "To what?" "To the parts of a room that make people quieter." He scoffed, smoothed his tie, left a cologne of power in his wake. Sophia turned back to Emma. "Do you remember the sea?" she asked, voice near a whisper. "Harbor light." Emma's lashes fluttered, the crack of a door. "Harbor." The girl breathed, a syllable so soft it could be a dream. Sophia's throat tightened. "Then let's bring it here," she said, "one small wave at a time." She unplugged the candle and slid it into a drawer. She opened the window a hair's width, counting under her breath. 1, 2, 3, no alarms. She tucked the lilies into the hallway, set a bowl of water near the bed, swirled it with her finger until tiny ripples shivered the surface. "A sea for your breath," Sophia murmured. Footsteps, fast, hard. Evelyn swept in, John behind her, Michael last, a quiet shadow. "Window closed," the doctor said. "Flowers back." Her smile was a door with no handle. "And the drops today are essential," she added, fingers precise as she reached for the vial. "We must manage her comfort." Sophia's heart sank, but something flared inside her, a lighthouse beam finding a ship. "May I sit with Emma during tea?" she asked. "Just to keep her calm." "Fine," Evelyn said, already done with the room, already elsewhere. John checked his watch like time owed him interest. Michael said nothing, but his gaze lingered on Sophia for a fraction longer than yesterday. Sophia held Emma's hand as the drops touched tea, watched the pale ring bloom where liquid kissed porcelain, watched the girl's pulse in the hollow of her throat, at first, calm, then a wobble, a thinning. Emma's breath hitched, a small animal stumbling on a dark road. "Emma," Sophia whispered. "Look at me." Emma's eyes rolled, the monitor trilled, a sound that turns the spine to glass. Sophia slammed the call button, nurses flooded the room. Evelyn barking orders. John on the phone, Robert appearing out of nowhere with a face carved out of worry. Michael's hand found Sophia's elbow and moved her to the corner where the wallpaper's flowers wouldn't see her shake. Minutes stretched, snapped, re-knotted, then the monitor found its pace again, coaxed there by medicine and command. Evelyn exhaled, wrote numbers, never looked at Sophia. When the room cleared, Robert turned, fury barely leashed. "What happened?" he asked, voice breaking around the edges. "Comfort," Evelyn replied smoothly, "and a common reaction." Sophia swallowed hard and stepped forward. "Sir," she said, "it happens after the drops." "Enough," John barked. "You're out of line." Robert's eyes sliced toward Sophia, then toward his daughter, then toward the stormless sky. He couldn't blame anymore. "Michael," he said quietly, "keep an eye on everything." Michael's nod was almost invisible, a promise written in the smallest font. That night, while the city slept, a camera in the pantry watched a hand reach for the cobalt vial, and Sophia would learn that comfort can be the cruelest disguise. Hospitals smell like endings, and the VIP wing smells like expensive ones, softer sheets, quieter wheels, longer corridors. They moved Emma there after the scare, a procession of white coats and clipboards, Robert walking like a man beneath a ceiling that might fall. Sophia wasn't allowed past the double doors, but she waited anyway, a small figure in a chair that tried to spit her out. She clutched a paper bag with a shell inside, pale and ridged, from a beach where the mornings begin with gull laughter, a lighthouse in her pocket, in miniature, that she'd bought from a tourist stall with last week's wages, something you can hold when the room says you can't breathe. Evelyn found her in the waiting area and sat down with deliberate grace. "Ms. Alvarez," the doctor said, threading kindness into her tone. "I appreciate your dedication." Sophia blinked, wary of pretty sentences. "But," Evelyn continued, "we must trust the protocol." "What is in the drops?" Sophia asked, steady. "A botanical blend," the doctor said, "proprietary and perfectly safe. It makes Emma's breath thin." "The disease makes her breath thin," Evelyn corrected, smile crisp. 2 weeks. "Ms. Alvarez, and we will make them comfortable." Across the glass, Robert stood by Emma's bed, fingers resting on the rail like a man holding onto a fence in high wind. Sophia remembered the lighthouse hum that nests in the bones when waves pound rock. She stood, heart pounding, and did the bravest thing a person can do when they have no power. She spoke to someone who does. "Mr. Hale," she said, approaching the doors, voice soft but impossible to ignore. Michael stepped between them, the quiet no of a guard who actually sees. "It's okay," Robert said, surprising them both. "What?" Sophia swallowed, felt the shell dig into her palm. "Emma points to a lighthouse," she said. "She did it twice." Robert frowned, pain flaring like a match. "We went once," he whispered. "Her mother loved that place." Sophia nodded. "I think she's asking for air, for sea, for something alive." Evelyn appeared behind Robert, eyes cooling the room. "With respect," she said. "That's projection." "Maybe," Sophia said, meeting the doctor's gaze. "But when I opened a window for 10 seconds, her breathing eased." Silence, the kind that makes choices. Robert looked at Michael, then at Emma. 10 seconds, he said finally, to the room, to the rules, to the ghosts. "Do it." The window hissed open, a narrow sigh of city breath slipping into the sterile quiet. Emma's chest lifted, held, settled, no miracle, but a change. Robert closed his eyes, a man tasting rain after a long drought. Evelyn's smile tightened. "Correlation is not causation," she said, a phrase that can hold up a wall or hide a door. Later, in the cafeteria where food tastes like paperwork, Michael slid into the seat across from Sophia. He placed a tablet between them. Screen dim, video paused on a pantry shelf. "You asked me to keep an eye," he said, voice low. He pressed play. A hand entered the frame, not Louis's, not a nurse's, long fingers, a signet ring, a wrist in a starched cuff. "John." The hand lifted the cobalt vial, tilted, refilled from a brown bottle with a printed label. "Supplier, Michelson Wellness Group." The label read in the brief focus of the lens. Sophia's breath caught. "It's a health brand," Michael said. "Clean image, deep pockets, big contracts. Owned by," Michael's jaw tightened, "a shell under Hale Enterprises. If the company that promises life sells the thing taking it, who do you confront first? The hand that pours or the man who built the shelf?" Storm again, as if the sky had heard the plot and wanted a part in it. Sophia turned the guest lounge into an ocean with a roll of blue fabric, a fan, a bowl of salt water, and a small projector she borrowed from a kind nurse who believed in impossible things. On the wall, a lighthouse flared to life, white tower, black cap, beam slicing rain. She arranged chairs like driftwood and set the shell where Emma's hand might find it. Robert walked in on a tide of exhaustion and stopped. His mouth opened, closed, opened. "What is this?" he asked, but his voice was softer than the words. "Air," Sophia said, "for the parts of her that remember." He glanced at the door, at the corridor where Evelyn might appear with rules and reasons. For once, he didn't call for permission. Sophia wheeled Emma in, IVs trailing like tame comets, nurses already briefed and strangely eager. Emma's eyes fluttered and then found the wall, the light, the stairs. The monitor slowed, steadied. The girl's fingers twitched for the shell, found it, curled around it like something finally meeting its shape. "Harbor," Emma breathed, voice still small but aimed. Robert went to his knees beside the chair, not caring about the floor, or the suit, or the fact that a security camera would catch him being a father and not a king. "We're here, baby," he whispered. "We're home." Sophia stepped back, a conductor letting the music carry itself. Michael hovered at the door, watching the hall, watching the moment. Evelyn arrived, stopped, recalculated. "This is unorthodox," she said. "It's working," Robert answered, not looking at her, looking at Emma. And the word working meant something bigger than numbers. Evelyn's mouth thinned into a decision she didn't announce. She turned and left. Heels quiet thunder. Michael slipped Sophia a small folded bag. "From the lab," he murmured. "Friend owed me." Inside, a simple test strip, the kind you dip and wait, the kind that answers cheap questions with brutal honesty. "Tea residue," he added. "From the cup after drops, trace sample." Sophia's fingers shook as she watched the strip bloom with colors that didn't belong in comfort, a reading that meant heavy metal contamination. Not proof for court, but proof enough for a heart to move. "Show him," Michael said, eyes hard with a promise to back her up. They found Robert in the quiet after the lighthouse scene, Emma asleep, the monitor calmer than it had been all week. Sophia laid the strip, the screenshots, the label photo on the low table between grief and fury. "This," she said, "is in the tea after the drops. And the supplier is ours," Michael added, "through a chain of companies John manages." The room shifted, the way a boat shifts when a wave decides to be a wall. Robert's face went white. Then something else that had steel in it. "He wouldn't," he whispered. Then he remembered meetings and margins and 1,000 moments where John had called ethics an angle. "Call him," Robert said, voice flat, dangerous. John arrived immaculate and annoyed. "We don't take meetings in hospital lounges," he snapped. And then he saw the spread on the table, the lighthouse on the wall, the father kneeling by a sleeping girl. "This is a misunderstanding," he began, already constructing a ladder made of words. "Climb down," Michael said, stepping between John and the door. "What is in the vial?" Sophia asked, each word a footstep toward a cliff she was willing to take. "Herbs," John said. "Approved." "Approved by who?" "By me," John admitted, too fast, then slower. "By procurement, legal, risk." "And by your conscience," Robert said, voice low and lethal. "Did that sign off too?" Silence again, the honest kind. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, a man who built empires realized his empire had turned to glass in a storm. Robert made one call that night that would end a career, save a life, and break a heart. His own, because he had hired the hand that turned comfort into poison. Morning did not ask permission to be gentle, it just was. Emma woke to the soft wash of the projector's light and the tactile honesty of the shell. No drops, no lilies, no candle. Window cracked a whisper. Nurses briefed. Protocols updated. Evelyn returned with a new tone in her voice. The polished certainty replaced by careful sentences that acknowledged air and light and the messy truth of bodies. "We're adjusting," she said. "We will support and monitor." There was a tremor beneath her. Science. The small quake that happens when a person meets a fact they cannot out-talk. Robert stood at the foot of the bed and confessed without making it sound like a confession. "I built Michelson Wellness to buy us time," he said to Sophia and to himself. "And it sold us shortcuts. I'm sorry." He told Emma, to the past, to the lighthouse, to the mother they both missed. Then he did something rarer than money. He listened. Sophia spoke about smells and sounds, about lilies and windows, about the way Emma's breaths changed in tiny increments that add up to a map. Michael spoke about the pantry video, the lab strip, the procurement chain. Evelyn spoke about interactions and oversight and the ethics checkpoint that needed to be rebuilt from its foundation. John was not in the room. Security saw to that. Some silences protect, some accuse. This one did both. 2 weeks, Robert whispered, staring at the calendar as if it were a judge. 2 weeks can change shape, Sophia said, remembering the hook she had tied to her own heart the first night. "We are not forecasting miracles, sir. We are trading poison for air," he nodded, a man relearning how to be a father under a different job title. They moved Emma back to the penthouse on the 4th day with a living room that smelled like salt water and not lilies, with fans and filters and rules that felt like care instead of control. The cobalt vial disappeared into a chain of custody box with Michael's signature on the seal. The candle was gone. The window learned to open to a safe mark. Sophia placed the lighthouse figurine on the sill where Dawn would find it first. On the 7th day, Emma's laugh returned in a small, shaky edition, but it returned on the 9th. She asked for soup and drank half the bowl. On the 12th, she asked, "Can we go?" Pointing at the glass in the city and the invisible stairwell inside the word harbor, Robert's knees gave. A soft collapse into a chair that felt like surrender but was actually relief. "Yes," he said, voice breaking. "Yes, baby, we can." They went at sunset because some stories insist on golden light. Nurses in tow, oxygen safe and signed. Michael driving like a man who has been given a task that matters more than any he's ever been paid for. The lighthouse stood where the land meets the stubbornness of ocean, white, tall, unafraid. Wind teased hair into laughter, gulls stitched sound into the sky. Salt cured something raw in all of them. Emma touched the stone and closed her eyes. "Mom," she whispered, and the sea kept the secret. Robert turned to Sophia, eyes full, voice useless. He tried to say thank you and landed in the place where language gives up and tears do the work. He wept the way men do when the world tells them they are built for iron, and they remember they are also built for water. Sophia stood there and let him, hands folded, wind in her hair, lighthouse at her back like a hand on her shoulder. Evelyn arrived late, but she arrived, paperwork in her bag, humility in her posture. "We're rewriting protocols," she said quietly, to Sophia, to the wind, to the profession she loved. "I will testify," Michael added, "on where the line was crossed." Robert stared at the horizon, then at the company he had to rebuild, the friend he had to fire, the daughter he had to choose every day. 2 weeks, he said softly, and then another 2, and another. He looked at Sophia, really looked, finally. Seeing the person who had held the lamp while the storm tried to win. "Stay," he asked. "As long as she needs." Sophia smiled, small, steady. "As long as any of us need," she said, "which is sometimes forever and sometimes just until the next breath." On the drive home, city lights rising like constellations you can touch, Emma fell asleep with a shell in her hand and a future in her chest. The lighthouse rotated, slow, patient, certain. If you were Sophia, would you have risked your job to question the comfort everyone trusted, or stayed silent and followed the rules? What would you have done differently in Robert's place? And how do you think wealth changes the way people hear the truth? Share your thoughts and any real experiences you've had with speaking up against approved procedures. Your story might be the lighthouse someone else needs today.